Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show. I'm so excited to be back for this week's episode and have a very special guest with me, Miss Jennifer Nash. Welcome, Jennifer, to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Haley. I'm glad to be here.
It's this is our couple. We've had a couple of conversations, and I'm just excited to now really dive into the work that you're doing and the beautiful offerings that I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to talk about today. I want to start with a few bits of your bio because I think it's really lovely to hear all the major and magical things that you're doing. First of all, you are the CEO of Arc and Brook PR. You focus specifically on female entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
Helping underrepresented and often marginalized businesswomen amplify their voices, get seen, heard, and globally connected as thought leaders through authentic storytelling, making them visible and credible experts with authority in their fields. So fabulous. I love your mission. Obviously, you've been featured on a number of incredible publications, BBC Radio, Boston 7 News, GMA New York, all kinds of magazines, print media, TV, all kinds of things. And the other thing specifically we want to dive into today is a opportunity that you have created called the Global Ignite and Vision Awards. So we're so excited to dive into this conversation with you today, Jennifer, and I'm so excited to hear more about all the major and beautiful things that you're doing. So with that, I would love for you to maybe start by sharing a little bit about your story, right? So, it's really lovely to read the bios and see what you're up to these days, but I always know that there's a story behind those words and how you got to where you are today. So if you would give us just a little bit of the background of how you created this business, how you've kind of what you've had to overcome to get to this point. And I'd love to start there if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction, Haley. That's beautiful. And really thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with your audience what I'm all about. So thank you. My name is Jennifer, born Jennifer Faith Limula. That's my maiden name. And then I added Nash. Obviously, that's my English-born husband. I'm married to my husband, Tim, and we live out here in leafy Buckinghamshire in England. That's halfway between London and Oxford. So I am a native Zambian by birth, and I've lived all over the world. And I've lived in the US for about 10 years. And then fast forward, went back home, but then came back here. So I've pretty much lived all of my adult life in the Western world. But it didn't come on just suddenly. I obviously came into the Western world in pursuit of my own happiness and greener pastures. I come from a very humble background, was raised by civil servants, and I lived in a family in a 2-bedroom apartment with my mom after my parents divorced. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with about 3 of my siblings, 4 siblings actually, and the rest of the extended family. So there was like 16 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment. So I just knew that, but prior to that, obviously, I actually had a privileged life. My grandfather was quite well off, and my parents, even as civil servants, we lived in a big house in the suburbs. But when my parents divorced and my father died, that's when things just started turning for the West. And I just knew I had to get myself out of there. But prior to that, growing up as a young girl, being a dark chocolate skinned girl with very curly hair, I was always bullied at school by my friends and within my community. They always felt like I was too dark skinned and I didn't fit in. And I was always the odd one out and always left out when the kids went out to parties, discos and stuff like that. They were like, who's your father? And if my dad's name was not recognizable because it wasn't a household name, they'll be like, you're off the list. You don't belong to the list. So those were part of the credentials that I needed to have to be able to be invited to all these cool parties. So I got, fast forward, I got so tired of being left out, of being marginalized and being underrepresented and my voice being stifled. And so I made a promise to myself that when I grew up, one day I will be speaking up for all those women who were once one young girls and now they're women that are not being seen, heard, or represented. So as soon as I became a PR consultant, I decided that was where I was going to niche in and help those women who were once like me, a young girl, being bullied and had no one to speak for them. And I want to give those people a voice.
Oh my goodness, what a powerful story, and how beautiful that you were able to, and I always love this, and it's a common theme with guests on the show. It's as if we take our greatest suffering and we create the greatest blessing because of what we've been through. So I love that you have been able to take those same feelings of not being seen and heard, right, and not included, and now you're giving other women the voice and the opportunity to be seen and heard. I think that's just such a beautiful gift that you're bringing to the world.
Thank you. And I'm not just giving them the voice and being heard, but I've also created my own platforms, which, if, you know, is challenging the status quo, because it's not easy to get in mainstream media. It's not easy to be heard in echo chambers of social media. So I've created a spotlight platform, a range of platforms. So I call the Spotlight Net TV on YouTube channel. And I've also got the Spotlight magazine. This is where I actually create headlines and turn heads for the women that I represent.
Oh, that is so wonderful. I love that. And yeah, like you said, sometimes it is difficult. So you're like, well, forget it. I'm going to make my own platforms. I love that so much. Oh, it's so inspiring. And so now you specifically work with female entrepreneurs. Do those women have a certain business, or are they in certain industries, or do you represent all kinds of women in different industries and around the world?
I represent all kinds of women in different kinds of businesses, but with a particular interest and niche for women that are doing social impact businesses. So women that are actually giving back to society, women that are actually doing things for other people. So first, service before self. People that are not so focused on the bottom line, they're focused in people, planet, and purpose. Those are the women that I want to represent.
Right. And I love that so much. Obviously, that's why we connected so quickly on this concept of, like, because what you're describing really for me is what we talk about in my language is the soul-centered CEO, right? It's someone that wants to make an impact, wants to make a difference, but also believes in the philosophy that when we make more, it's so that we can give more and leave a legacy. You know, I think that's such a beautiful mission as well. And one of the things that we talked about last time, Jennifer, was this concept that you have created for those that do feel called to leave a legacy of some kind. You've created a path and an opportunity for them to do that. Do you want to share a little bit more about that you shared last time?
Thank you so much, Haley. You've got such a great memory.
It really stood out, right? Like, it felt really powerful. So I want to make sure our listeners get to hear that part of your story as well.
Thank you. So I've created an offering called Sustain the Status Quo. So this offering pretty much is an offering, a high ticket offering that I've created for those CEOs and women entrepreneurs that have been in business for more than 7 years, at least minimum, or if they've reached their 6 to 7 figure mark already, even if they're not at 7 years yet, that means that they've already established themselves. They've already probably been in as many and as much media outlets as they would want to be. They've already been there and done that. So they've reached a position where they don't know what to do with their money, not because they have too much of it, but because they have enough to sustain their own lives and they just need to give back to society. So I've created this Sustain the Status Quo where I work with these women to establish a socially responsible individual give where they can give back to their local communities. But I've even gone a step further to create where they can give back to global communities by immortalizing their legacies. So I call this the sustain the status quo. So where you actually immortalize your legacy by giving back to educational institution, inner city schools, higher education, where you can build libraries that are named after yourself, or you can maybe dedicate or support or sponsor a library, or you can dedicate and sponsor something to do with higher education. But within that, whatever that dedication that you do, it's named after you. So that's a legacy, that's a gift that keeps going. It's what I call a gift that keeps giving. Because obviously those children, as they go through that education system, they'll constantly have access to the things that you have enabled for them to have. And so you are giving a gift that keeps giving through one child at a time,
Right.
and through many children at a time. And they can immortalize your legacy in that way.
I think those words are so beautiful. Immortalize your legacy, right?
Yeah.
We all want to leave something behind. And I think that that concept and that opportunity is such a beautiful one. And I believe that you are working on yours that will be dedicated to your dad, right?
Yes, yes. So out of that, so I thought, you know what? So let me practice what I preach, right? So I created, before even creating the Sustain the Status Quo offering, I have been working on my own NPO, nonprofit organization, which I named after my dad. It's called the HML Foundation. In full, it's the Henry Morrison Limula Foundation. As you know, my maiden name is Limula. So the Henry Morrison Limula Foundation was established from a personal story that I had with my dad. We had our own little book club. We used to exchange books. And because my dad passed away when I was only 22, so I never had an opportunity to immortalize his legacy, or to have him create a legacy while he was leaving, so to speak. So I decided to immortalize his legacy by creating the HML Foundation, so that through that, people can always remember his name, to make him lovable and unforgettable, as I want to do with the women that I work with. So yeah, so because of that, I've created the Giver Awards. And so the Giver Awards is such it's a fundraising platform which I want to use to raise $1 million to build the first ever state-of-the-art library in Zambia. It's an ambitious project, but I'm very passionate about it, and I can see it happening.
Oh, it's absolutely happening. I mean, absolutely happening. So let's dive into that a little bit deeper if we can. So the GIVA Award stands for Global Ignite Vision Awards, right? Okay. Yeah. And is that an annual event that you're doing, or is this a one-time, you're going for it, going to raise $1 million? Give me a little bit more detail about
Thank you for that, Haley. It's an annual event, which we actually started in 2009. We started it in Zambia, my country of origin, and we started doing it as a side thing that I was doing as part of my CSR for my business. And so we started doing these gala dinners for, and we helped, at that time we were helping with young bridal designers. So we created the Young Bridal Designer Award. So because my business at the time was a bridal business, so I was running a bridal shop and a bridal magazine, right? So it was more natural to transition whatever CSR that I was doing towards young bridal designers. So we created the Young Bridal Designer Awards and did it for 2 consecutive years. But then in 2009, the recession hit. So the luxury industry was the first to go. So we put a stop to that. And that's when my husband and I moved to England. And I've since then, fast forward, changed careers and gone back into public relations. So then this Giver Awards came back as a result of the fact that now I'm in PR and I do global visibility strategies for clients. So hence the Global Ignite Vision Awards, so that it's correlated to publicity, to PR publicity. It's correlated to what I do, but all proceeds still go to the HML Foundation. So this will be the third in the running gala dinner per se, but it's the first ever done from the PR perspective.
Oh, wonderful.
Have I answered all of your questions?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It sounds amazing. And so will that be an in-person event that you're going to be doing this year, later this year?
At the moment, it's virtual / in person, pending the UK government authority to release us from lockdown. So I'm waiting until the 21st of June before I can say, yeah, for sure, we're going to have an in-person event.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be lovely?
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be back in person. I just attended an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was my first, real in-person live event in over a year. And there is just something so magical about just heart to heart and belly to belly that it's the best, But in lieu of that, I've also realized that there is still so much magic that we can create in the virtual containers.
Virtually, yeah.
Well, I hope that will be able to be experienced in real life. So if people were interested, those that are listening, in either participating or being part of it or hearing at least more information, where would they be able to find that?
Yeah. So for now, the landing page is only going to be ready tomorrow, actually. As we speak, today is the 6th of May. So the landing page is not ready yet, but you can DM me. You can follow me at I am Jen Nash on Instagram and on Facebook. And also you can reach out to me via my group on Facebook, which is called the Unforgettable Entrepreneurs Global Wired Women. So those are the two areas where you can find, and I'll be publishing URLs and updates about the Global Wired, about the Global Ignite Vision Awards on all of the platforms. So, except that this interview has happened sooner before the landing page was ready.
Okay, we'll have it. We won't post it until it's time. So we'll have it all together before we publish.
Right.
I love all of that. And then, Jennifer, if you were to give any, just, one or two little tips to female entrepreneurs that are really looking to expand their visibility and their impact, would you have any ideas to share with them that we might be able to include here?
Yeah, thank you so much for that opportunity. I mean, it's a given that visibility starts with being able to sit in podcasts like yourself. Hey, Haley, this is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm talking to you. So guesting on other people's podcasts. And if you don't already have your own podcast, create one if you want to, if you're comfortable being a host. But also don't just leave it there to podcasts. You should also go one step ahead and be as visible as possible on social media, constantly posting useful, valuable information that will help other people to notice you and to see you and to hear you, and for you to amplify your own voice. But outside of that, you want to also try and get into as much mainstream media as possible. If you're able to, try and pitch yourself to journalists as much as possible. Follow journalists that are always writing stories about something to do with the expertise that you have. If not, and if you're not comfortable approaching journalists like that, use somebody like myself, a publicist, who can help you to identify who those journalists are so that you can be paired up and be interviewed for opinion editorials and or to be interviewed as an expert in your field.
Beautiful. I love that. And the one last thing that I did notice, that you also host a club on Clubhouse. Do you want to share where we might be able to find you there in case they want to jump in some of your rooms that you're hosting?
Amazing. Thank you so much. The Clubhouse room is actually growing.
Right.
So yeah, I'm excited that you asked that. That's our newest platform. So we are in Clubhouse as Unforgettable Women. And it's just a clubhouse for women only. who are trying to get their voices heard and to get heard and seen. And we've done it in such a way that the first week of the month, the first week of the month, yes. So the first Wednesday of every month, it's going to be just any general topic that's trending in the world. So we're open to discussing any topic that's trending in the world that's kind of affecting every one of us. For example, yesterday we had the mental health awareness month conversation, which is super important. And then the second week of every month, we're going to have all the community leaders, anybody who's got a community, a tribe, a group, a Facebook group or whatever, to come and talk about how they support their communities to grow and how they keep them engaged. The third week, we've got the book club. So this is the Unforgettable Women Book Club, where any authors that have published books can come and talk about the books, share the secret sauce about the books that they've published and how they've gotten to #1 seller list or anything of that nature, or just simply promote your book if you've just got your book out. And then the final week, we're going to discuss we're going to invite people that are hosting podcasts. So if you've got a podcast, you want to talk about it, you want to share the inspiration behind you starting your podcast, or you just want to invite guests to be guests on your podcast, that's an opportunity for you to come in that.
How lovely. You're basically creating a community on Clubhouse to where women that want to be more visible and connect have a platform to do that. So I think that's
exactly
wonderful.
Exactly.
Oh, I love this. So much fun. So many great opportunities to connect and to impact more and become more visible. I love it. Wonderful. I think it's so lovely to see again how much passion you have for the work that you do, how committed you are to the women that you serve. And it's such an honor and pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
The honor was all mine, Haley. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Wonderful. And thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show. And we'll be back next week with another show.